I want you to just, for a second, think about the last time you felt like everything around you was on fire.
Mm,
Maybe it's a project at work just going completely off the rails, a relationship hitting a wall, or, even just scrolling the news and feeling that tightness in your chest.
that's the classic, I need to fix this right now response.
Exactly. The instinct is to, grab the fire extinguisher.
Yeah.
We want to fight the external conditions. We want to argue or force the project back on track or,
Yeah.
or just keep scrolling until we find a solution. We just assume the problem is out there.
So the solution must be out there, too. It's the standard human operating procedure, really. You see chaos externally, so you apply force externally.
You try to muscle reality into a shape you like better.
Yep.
But today, we are diving into a source that says, stop.
Yeah.
Just put the fire extinguisher down.
Yeah.
The text we're analyzing argues that we have the entire mechanics of change completely backward.
It's a philosophical deep dive, for sure.
And it proposes this deceptively simple, but honestly, a kind of radical premise. Reality improves when individuals become coherent.
And it's so important to clarify that right off the bat, when this source says improvement, it's not talking about positive thinking.
Yeah.
It's not about manifesting or just being nice.
Mhm.
It treats human behavior almost like engineering. It shifts the focus from moral virtue, trying to be a good person.
To structural integrity.
Exactly.
That's a key distinction I want us to hold on to.
Yeah.
We are not here to talk about morality. We're here to talk about being structurally sound.
Right. And the source argues that most of our suffering, it isn't actually coming from the economy or politics or your difficult boss.
It stems from internal contradiction.
Mm-hmm. Which brings us to the mission for this deep dive. We're going to explore this philosophy of mechanics. We want to see how you can actually influence the chaotic systems around you.
But not by being louder or more forceful.
No, but by being stable.
Okay, so let's get our definition straight before we go any further. The core concept here is coherence. Now, in a casual conversation, coherent usually just means, you make sense when you talk.
Yeah, but the source defines it much more precisely.
Right.
In this text, coherence is defined as, well, it's the state where what you feel, what you think, what you say, and what you do are all, aligned.
So they're not in conflict.
Exactly. No conflict.
Feel, think, say, do. It sounds so simple on paper.
It does.
But when I read that, I tried to audit my own week with that in mind. And honestly, it's brutal. It's actually kind of embarrassing how rarely all four of those things are really lining up.
Well, it's much harder than it looks because we are trained to be fragmented.
Okay, think about the classic workplace scenario. You're in a meeting. You feel frustrated because the idea on the table is just terrible. You think this can waste so much money. Then your boss looks at you and you say, sounds like a solid plan.
And then you do the work while, resentfully dragging your feet.
Right.
That is the textbook definition of incoherence. You've got 4 different vectors pointing in 4 different directions.
And that's where the power drain happens.
That's exactly what the text points out. It creates a structural weakness. You are leaking energy because you're fighting yourself before you even start the work.
And the source makes this really bold claim here. It says, I do not fix the world by fighting it. I affect the world by stabilizing myself within it.
It's a physics argument, really, like a tuning fork.
Yeah.
If you strike a perfectly calibrated tuning fork and you hold it in a room full of other tuning forks,
You'll start to resonate.
eventually, yeah, they'll start to resonate with that clear tone. But if you are discordant, if you're vibrating with that internal conflict we just described, you're just adding noise to the room.
So the big takeaway here is that fixing the world, or even just, fixing my household, starts with checking my own equipment. Am I calibrated?
Or are you just adding to the static? Precisely. The text says, what is coherent influences more than what is loud. It's an argument for structural stability over, well, brute force.
I want to dig into how we get that stability. Because the source has a very specific, and I'll be honest, a somewhat controversial take on truth.
Oh, yeah.
We live in a world that loves the phrase, my truth and your truth.
This text takes a hard pivot away from that. It says it very clearly. Truth is not an opinion. It argues that, sure, agreement is social. We can agree on things to get along, but truth is structural.
Truth is structural. Okay, break that down for us. What does that actually look like?
It offers a really useful metric. It says truth is what remains consistent across time, pressure, and relationship.
Okay, wait. Consistent across pressure. That's interesting. It sounds like stress testing materials or something.
It is, exactly. Think about a bridge. You can have an opinion that the bridge is sturdy. You can have a committee vote that the bridge is sturdy. You can feel really good about the bridge.
But if you drive a 10-ton truck over it?
That's the pressure. The truth of the bridge's structure is revealed by whether it holds or collapses. And the text applies this to our lives. If your truth shifts depending on who is in the room or how stressed you are.
Or how much money is on the table.
Right. Then it's not truth.
Wow. That is a high bar. So if I have to change my story to please someone, it wasn't true to begin with.
It's a high bar. And this is where it gets really interesting for our daily lives. The source gives us what it calls the instability rule.
Which is?
If something must be defended to exist, it is already unstable.
Oof. Okay, that one hit me. If it must be defended to exist,
It's a heavy hitter.
it makes you think about the loudest person in the room again. Or, on social media.
Yeah.
The people who are screaming the most frantically to be heard.
According to this framework, that screaming is evidence of fragility.
Right.
If I have to constantly argue for my reality or force you to acknowledge it, then maybe my foundation isn't as solid as I think it is. Real structural truth just is. It withstands pressure without needing a PR campaign.
Gravity doesn't need to argue with you to work.
It just works, exactly.
So if we stop focusing on defending our opinions and start focusing on finding what's actually true, what's structurally sound, how do we do that? Because usually there's a war going on inside between our heads and our hearts.
Ah, the classic head versus heart battle. We usually pick a side, don't we? You're either the logical, rational robot who says emotions are messy.
Or you're the intuitive feeler who follows your gut everywhere and ignores logic.
Oh.
And we usually judge the other side. The logical people think the feelers are chaotic.
And the feelers think the logical people are cold. The source just rejects that binary completely. It says feeling is not separate from reason. It frames them as part of the same data processing system. The formula it provides is feeling is data. Reason is the organization of that data.
Feeling is data. I love that reframe. It takes all the morality out of it. It's not good to be sad or bad to be angry.
Right.
It's just information.
Exactly. Imagine you're driving a car. The feeling is the sensor on the dashboard lighting up.
The check engine, light.
Exactly. Or the thermometer reading freezing temperatures. That is raw data. It's not good or bad. It's just information about the environment or the machine.
And reason.
Reason is the mechanic who looks at that light, opens the hood, and figures out what to do with the information. The danger, the text says, is when you dismiss either one.
So if you dismiss the feeling,
You're driving with tape over your dashboard. You're ignoring the data. You might think you're being logical, but your logic is flawed because it's missing half the input.
and if you dismiss reason,
Well, then you just have a pile of data with no structure. You're just reacting to every single light that flashes without understanding what it means. You're overwhelmed. When either is dismissed, it says, distortion appears.
it mentions the body specifically here, right, as the primary instrument.
Yes. The body is an instrument of perception. It claims the body registers alignment before your thought can even articulate it.
I think everyone has felt that. You walk into a room where you're about to sign a contract and your stomach just drops. Your brain is saying, this is a great opportunity, but your body is screaming, abort mission.
And the source warns, ignoring this intelligence creates delayed consequences. That's the mechanics part again. If you ignore that warning light because it's inconvenient,
Or because you don't want to be rude.
exactly, the engine is still going to blow up eventually. It's not a moral punishment. It's just cause and effect.
So the instruction here is to stop treating those physical sensations, that tightness in your throat, the heavy chest, as distractions.
They're the early warning system for incoherence. The body knows when you are lying to yourself before your mind even admits it.
Okay, so let's say I'm doing the work. I'm listening to the data, organizing it with reason, trying to align everything. That brings us to responsibility. But I mean, that word carries so much baggage.
It does. We hear responsibility and we immediately hear blame.
Right. Who is responsible for this mess?
Which just means, who are we going to punish? Or it feels like a heavy backpack. I have so many responsibilities. It just sounds draining.
Yeah.
The source redefines it completely. It breaks the word down. Responsibility. Literally, the ability to respond.
So the ability to respond without fragmentation.
That's the definition.
That's a subtle but huge shift. It's not about whose fault it is. It's about Are you whole enough to handle it?
Exactly. Think of a crisis, a house on fire. The person panicking and running in circles is fragmented. They might care deeply, but they have no responsibility. They can't respond effectively.
But the firefighter who is calm and focused,
They have the ability to respond. So when the text says, when I remain whole, my responses become effective, it's about maintaining your structural integrity so you can actually be useful.
right? If you're fragmented, you can't respond. You just react or deflect.
Or collapse.
Right.
You're fighting yourself, so you have no energy left for the actual problem.
This links directly to boundaries.
Yeah.
Because if I'm going to be whole, I need to know where I end and you begin. But we usually think of boundaries as walls.
I'm putting up a wall to keep you out.
Yeah. But the source says, boundaries are not walls. They are points of definition.
Mm-hmm.
I like that image, but help me visualize it. What's the difference?
Okay, think of a soccer field. It has lines. Those are boundaries. They aren't walls. You can see across them, talk across them. But they define the space where the game happens.
Without the lines, you just have a mob running around a meadow.
You wouldn't have a game. Exactly. The boundary makes the interaction playable. The text says, clear definition allows connection without loss.
Connection without loss.
If I don't know where I end and you begin, I can't really connect with you. I just get enmeshed with you. And it becomes a muddy mess. Real connection requires two distinct people.
And that leads us into what I think is the most radical part of this text, the definition of love. Because, man, have we been sold a different story? Pop culture is all about merging.
Oh, yeah. You complete me. Two becoming one.
The source pushes back on that. Hard. It states, love is not merging. Love is recognition without erasure.
Recognition without erasure. That's profound.
It is.
And it goes further. It sets a hard mechanical rule. Anything that requires self-abandonment is not love.
That hits hard. I mean, how many times have we seen people or been people who shrink themselves to fit into a relationship? You stop speaking your mind. You ignore your body's data.
All to keep the peace. You basically erase yourself to be loved.
Yeah.
And the text argues that from a mechanical perspective, that just isn't love. It might be dependency or fear of being alone. But if you have to break your own coherence to keep someone close, the structure is flawed. You're building on quicksand.
It reframes the whole idea of sacrifice. Instead of, I sacrifice myself for you, it's, I must maintain my integrity, so I am actually here to connect with you.
Right. You cannot share yourself if you have abandoned yourself. It's impossible physics. If you disappear to make someone else happy, there's no you left.
So let's zoom out. We've built this picture of a coherent individual. They're listening to their body. They're responsible, meaning able to respond. They have clear boundaries.
A structurally sound human being.
Right. So how does this one person actually affect the world? Because we started by saying this is how reality improves, but it can feel a little selfish, right? If I'm just focusing on myself, how does that fix anything?
This brings us to the section on power and systems. And again, we have to redefine our terms. The text says power is not dominance. Power is stability under pressure.
Stability under pressure. So not who has the biggest stick.
No. Think about that chaotic meeting we talked about earlier. Everyone's panicking, the boss is yelling. Who has the actual power in that room?
Well, it's usually the one person who isn't freaking out, the one looking around calmly.
Exactly. It's the person who is completely stable and clear. The system, the room reorganizes around them. The source says systems reorganize around what is steady.
That's fascinating. It implies that chaos actually looks for a calibration point. It wants to be organized.
That's the mechanics of influence. We think influence is about force, the loudest voice, the biggest army. But the text argues change that lasts does not come from force. It comes from clarity repeated without contradiction.
Repeated without contradiction. So there's that consistency piece again.
Right. We often try to force change in a big burst of energy. We protest for a day or go on a diet for a week.
And it's forgotten by Friday.
Exactly. But the text argues that what you embody consistently teaches more than what you explain. If you're a consistent signal in a noisy world, you become a reference point.
And people and systems, they naturally align with what's reliable.
Yes. If you're the tuning fork that never loses its pitch, eventually the rest of the orchestra tunes to you.
Now, to maintain that consistency, the text introduces two principles. It calls them masculine and feminine. And I want to pause here and be super clear for you listening. We are not talking about men and women.
Correct. Please do not hear gender rules. The text treats these as mechanics or energetic principles that exist within everyone. You could call them structure and flow, if that helps.
Okay, so let's break them down. How does the source describe the feminine principle?
It's described as coherence in motion. It integrates rather than divides. It remains responsive. Think of water. It flows, it adapts.
Hmm.
If you have a system that's too rigid that can't adapt, it breaks. You need that adaptability.
In the masculine principle.
That's described as direction without collapse. It protects structure so coherence can persist. Think of the riverbank. The water, the feminine, needs the riverbank, the masculine, to have direction.
Without the bank, the water is just a swamp.
Exactly. But without the water, the bank is just a dry ditch. It's useless. Both are required, it says. Neither dominates the other.
And the argument is that when individuals do this, when they balance these principles inside themselves, that's what actually heals the macro systems.
The text puts it pretty bluntly. The world reflects its participants.
Ouch. So the world is crazy because,
You're crazy.
essentially, it says when individuals fragment, systems harden. When individuals regulate themselves, systems soften. That connects all the dots. The rigidity we see in our institutions, the polarization, the gridlock, it's a macro reflection of the microfragmentation inside of us.
We're rigid and defensive internally, so our systems become rigid and defensive. It creates this massive responsibility, but also a massive opportunity.
But I can't just blame the system.
I am a constituent part of the system. My incoherence feeds the distortion. My coherence feeds the solution.
The source has a line about this. I do not need to save the world. I need to stop contributing distortion to it.
That's the key takeaway. Stop contributing distortion. I mean, imagine if everyone just did that, if everyone just cleaned up their own signal.
The noise level of the entire planet would drop.
And this isn't just poetic, it's systemic. Think about an argument with a partner. If they come at you with chaos and you react with chaos, the system escalates.
But if you stop contributing distortion, if you just stand there, responsible, coherent, defined, you break the chain.
You become a circuit breaker. The person has nothing to bounce their chaos off of. You stop the reaction cycle.
But the text warns us, this isn't a magic wand, right? Not to expect instant results.
Yes. It says, I do not rush resolution. I allow understanding to complete itself. It warns that premature answers create future problems.
That's the patience part. We want the quick fix. We want the tension to end now.
But true stability is playing the long game. It's recognizing that a future worth living in is built by people who are, as the source says, internally aligned, emotionally honest, mentally clear, and relationally intact.
This is not idealism. It is mechanics.
Exactly. It's an instruction manual for a functioning human being, and by extension, a functioning world. It brings it all back to you. You are the instrument. You have to tune yourself before you can play in the symphony.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's just recap the journey. It's been a lot, but I feel like it all hangs together.
We started with the premise that we try to fix reality from the outside in, but the true mechanic is inside out.
We moved through the 4 parts of coherence: feeling, thinking, saying, and doing. And we learned that if those were misaligned, we're structurally weak.
We talked about truth not as a social agreement, but as structural consistency under pressure, and that our bodies are data collectors. Feeling is data, and reason is the organization of that data.
We redefined responsibility as the ability to respond. We redefined boundaries as the lines that make the game playable. And we redefined love as recognition without self-abandonment.
And finally, we looked at how stable individuals act as anchors, as tuning forks, that soften and reorganize the chaotic systems around them.
It really puts the ball in your court. You don't have to go out and start a revolution. You just have to check your own alignment.
The final instruction is really about where you place your attention. You don't need to force the outcome. You need to tend to the instrument, which is yourself.
There's one final thought from the text that I really want to leave you with. It's a phrase that I've been turning over in my head all week. The source states, clarity is already corrective.
It's a beautiful thought.
Think about that for a second. We always think we need to do something to fix a problem. We need an action plan, a strategy. But this suggests something else entirely.
It suggests that if you just achieve absolute clarity, if you stop lying to yourself and you see the thing for what it actually is.
The correction happens automatically.
Yeah.
Because once you see it clearly, you can't unknow it.
Yeah.
You naturally stop contributing to the distortion. You don't walk into the wall once you turn the lights on and see where the wall is.
The seeing is the doing. Clarity isn't just the first step. Clarity is the fix.
So that is your homework, if you choose to accept it. Where in your life are you pushing or forcing or fighting? And what would happen if, instead of trying to force a solution, you just focused on getting absolutely structurally clear?
Stop contributing distortion. Start embodying clarity.
Thank you for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll see you next time.